Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku received Stark's Omega armor. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The sky over Muzdalifa was a bruised purple, the color of a fresh hematoma. It was the kind of twilight that usually signaled the end of the workday, the beginning of the evening rush, the lighting of street lamps. But for Izuku Midoriya, standing on the edge of a nondescript commercial building, it felt like the end of the world. The wind whipped at his gakurin, the fabric snapping violently against his thin frame, but the sound was muffled by the roaring rushing of blood in his ears. Across from him stood the Titan. The symbol. The pillar that held the sky up. All Might. But the figure was hunched, steam pouring off his emaciated form like a dying engine. The secret was out. The wound was revealed. And the words had been spoken. I cannot simply say you can become a hero even without power. The sentence hung in the air, heavier than gravity. It pressed Izuku down, compressing his lungs until breathing became a manual, agonizing labor. All Might looked down, his hollow eyes filled with a terrible, pitying kindness. Pros are constantly risking their lives. Someone without a quirk. I cannot, in good conscience, tell you to pursue a path that leads to your death. If you want to help people, consider the police force. They are often teased, but it is a fine profession. Izuku's mouth opened, but no sound came out. His notebook, Hero Analysis for the Future number 13, felt like a lead weight in his hand. A useless tome. A diary of delusions. It's good to dream, young man, All Might said, turning toward the stairwell door, his hand resting on the frame. But you have to be realistic. The door clicked shut. Izuku was alone. He didn't cry. Not yet. The shock was too absolute. It was a numbness, a cold anesthesia that started in his fingertips and spread to his chest. For 10 years, he had been running on a fuel mixture of hope and denial. Maybe they're wrong. Maybe there's a late bloomer clause. Maybe if I just try hard enough. The symbol of peace had just extinguished the last spark. Izuku walked to the railing. He looked down at the city. Thousands of lights flickering on. Thousands of quirks active in the streets below. Telekinesis, elemental control, gigantification, minor mutations. Everyone had a piece of the divine. Everyone had a spark. Except him. Realistic, Izuku whispered. The word tasted like ash. He turned away from the edge. Not out of a will to live, necessarily, but out of a lack of will to do anything at all. He walked to the stairwell door, opened it, and began the long descent. The walk home was a blur. Izuku moved like a ghost, his red sneakers dragging against the pavement. He passed a convenience store where a crowd was gathered, watching a news report on the window screens. Smoke was billowing in the distance. The Tatooine shopping district. A villain attack? A bystander muttered. The explosions are huge. Where are the heroes? Normally Izuku would be sprinting. He would be pushing through the crowd, notebook ready, eyes wide, dissecting the villain's weakness and the hero's counter-strategies. Today, he didn't even turn his head. It doesn't matter, a dark voice in his head whispered. Analysis is useless without the power to act. You're just a fanboy. A creepy, quirkless stalker. He took a sharp right, avoiding the main roads. He couldn't bear to see people. He couldn't bear to see the heroism he was denied. His feet, operating on muscle memory and a subconscious desire for isolation, led him toward the coast. Dagoba Municipal Beach Park. Once a beautiful vista, now an illegal dumping ground for the city's refuse. Mountains of trash, rusted cars, broken refrigerators, tires, and industrial scrap obscured the ocean view. It was a graveyard of forgotten things. Broken things. It was the perfect place for him. Izuku navigated the labyrinth of junk, the smell of brine and rust filling his nose. The sun had fully set now, the shadows lengthening into jagged claws. He found a clearing near the center of the trash piles, a canyon formed by 2 towering stacks of discarded electronics and scrap metal. He stopped. He looked at his hand. He looked at the notebook. With a sudden, guttural scream that tore at his throat, Izuku hurled the notebook. It spun through the air and slammed into the side of a rusted washing machine, falling into a puddle of dirty oil. Realistic. he screamed at the piles of trash. I know! I know! He fell to his knees, his hands gripping the gritty sand. The tears finally came, hot and stinging. They weren't the comical fountains of his youth. These were silent, racking sobs that shook his entire skeleton. I just wanted to save people, he choked out, speaking to the garbage. I just wanted to be like you. He slammed his fist into the ground. Thud. He hit it again. Thud. He raised his fist for a third strike, putting every ounce of his frustration, his grief, and his anger into the blow. Clang. The sound wasn't the dull thud of sand. It was the resonant ring of hollow metal. Izuku froze, his fist throbbing. He wiped his eyes, blinking through the tears. The sand beneath his knees was vibrating. A low, rhythmic hum, almost subsonic, began to emanate from the earth. What? Before he could stand, the ground beneath him vanished. Sand and scrap metal gave way. Izuku fell. He didn't have time to scream. He tumbled through darkness, sliding down a steep, smooth chute. He flailed, his fingers scrabbling against cold, frictionless metal. He slid for what felt like 10 seconds, picking up speed, before the chute leveled out, dumping him unceremoniously onto a hard, polished floor. Izuku groaned, rolling onto his back. Ow, he blinked. The air here was different. It didn't smell like rot or ocean water. It smelled sterile. Like ozone and old electricity. Lights, a voice said. It wasn't a person. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, a cool, disembodied female voice with a strange, clipped accent. Banks of LED strips along the floor and ceiling flickered then blazed to life. Izuku shielded his eyes, scrambling backward until his back hit a wall. As his vision adjusted, his jaw dropped. He was in a bunker. But not like any basement he had ever seen. The walls were lined with panels of sleek, gunmetal gray. Cables, thick as pythons, ran along the ceiling, pulsing with faint blue light. To his left were workbenches covered in tools that looked decades old yet far more advanced than anything in the UE support catalog. But the centerpiece of the room commanded his attention. In the center of the circular chamber stood a podium. And floating above the podium, suspended in a magnetic containment field, was a silver sarcophagus. It looked like liquid mercury frozen in time, shaped vaguely like a human torso but smooth, featureless, and terrifyingly beautiful. Intruder detected, the voice said again. Scanning. A beam of blue light swept over Izuku. He froze, terrified. Was this a villain's hideout? Had he stumbled into a secret lair? Heart rate, 160 BPM. Cortisol levels, critical. Genetic markers, analysis complete. The voice paused. The silence stretched for a heartbeat. Subject identified, Izuku Midoriya. Quirk factor 0. Biological interface compatibility, 100%. Izuku blinked. What? A hologram materialized in front of him. It was a pillar of blue light that coalesced into the shape of a woman's face, or rather, a stylized interface representing one. Welcome, Mr. Midoriya, the AI said. I am FRIDY. You are currently standing in Secure Vault 42, a contingency cache left by Tony Stark. Izuku's brain short-circuited. Stark? Tony Stark? The pre-Quirk era engineer? The Merchant of Death? He knew the name. Anyone who studied hero history knew the name. Before the glowing baby in Chin-Chin, before Quirks rewrote the laws of society, there were legends of men who touched the sky with metal wings. Tony Stark was a figure of myth, a genius, a billionaire, a hero who vanished when the Age of Quirks began, his technology supposedly lost to the Chaos Wars. Mr. Stark preferred the mechanic, FRIDY corrected dryly. And yes, this facility has been dormant for 180 years, awaiting a viable candidate. Izuku slowly got to his feet, dusting off his uniform. Candidate? Candidate for what? I just fell in a hole. I need to go. My mom. You cannot leave yet, FRIDY stated. Not while the city above is burning. A holographic screen expanded in the air. Izuku gasped. It was a live feed from the Tatooine shopping district. The fires he had seen earlier were raging out of control. The sludge villain, the same one that had attacked Izuku earlier that day, had reformed. And he had a hostage. Izuku squinted at the screen. The hostage was thrashing, setting off explosions in a desperate attempt to breathe. Spiky ash-blonde hair. Kaken! Izuku screamed. The local heroes are ineffective, Fridy observed. The screen showed empty Lady unable to enter the narrow street, Kamui Wood struggling with the fire, and Death Arms doing nothing but crowd control. They were watching Bakugo suffocate. Why aren't they doing anything? Izuku yelled, panic rising in his chest. All Might. Where is All Might? The biosignature of the entity known as All Might is present at the scene. Fridy zoomed in on a skinny, frail man standing at the back of the crowd, clutching his chest in agony. However, his energy reserves are depleted. He cannot intervene. Izuku felt the blood drain from his face. All Might had wasted his time saving Izuku earlier. He had used up his limit. This was Izuku's fault. Kaken was going to die because Izuku had clung to All Might's leg. I have to go, Izuku said, turning toward the chute. I have to help him. You have no power, Fridy said coldly. You will die, and you will save no one. You are quirkless. Izuku stopped. The words were a physical blow. I know. You don't have to tell me. Tears pricked his eyes again. But he's my friend. I can't just watch. Correct, the AI said. You are quirkless. Your genetic code lacks the chaotic mutation factor that 99% of the current population possesses. Your neural pathways are clean. Your biological rhythm is unpolluted by evolution. The silver sarcophagus in the center of the room began to ripple. The liquid metal shifted, looking almost alive. Mr. Stark predicted the rise of superhumans, Fridy explained. He predicted that as biology evolved, technology would be left behind. But he also predicted a time when biology would fail, when the world would need a hero who wasn't born but built. The containment field dropped. The silver mass floated toward Izuku. This is the Mark 50. The Endosim armor. It is a symbiotic liquid smart metal, driven by a psionic link. It doesn't run on buttons or voice commands alone, Izuku. It runs on the mind. The metal hovered inches from Izuku's chest. It radiated a strange warmth. Quirk users cannot wear this, Fridy continued. Their genetic mutations cause interference with the neural lace. The suit rejects them. It requires a blank slate. It requires you. Izuku looked at the screen. Bakugo's explosions were getting weaker. The sludge villain was forcing itself down his throat. Can I save him? Izuku whispered. With this, can I save him? This armor is the pinnacle of human engineering, Fridy said. It is the Omega. With it, you can do more than save him. You can be Iron Man. Izuku looked at the silver mass. He looked at his hands, the hands that had never held power, only notebooks. He thought of All Might's rejection. Be realistic. This was the most unrealistic thing happening in the world. Do it, Izuku said. Put it on me. Brace yourself, Fridy warned. The neural handshake is unpleasant. The liquid metal lunged. It didn't hit him like a solid object. It splashed against his chest and instantly began to crawl. Izuku gasped as the cold metal seeped through his clothes, wrapping around his torso, his neck, his arms. It felt like living ice. Then, the pain hit. It wasn't physical pain, exactly. It was the sensation of a million microscopic needles piercing his mind. His vision went white. He felt the suit wiring itself into his nervous system, bypassing his spine, hooking directly into his brain stem. Connection established. Optical sensors, online. Repulsors charged. Threat assessment, active. Izuku's eyes snapped open. He wasn't in the bunker anymore. Or rather, he didn't see the bunker. He saw data. The world was overlaid with a heads-up display, HUD, of intricate complexity. He saw the structural integrity of the walls, the energy flow in the cables, the trajectory of the dust motes in the air. He looked down at his body. He was encased in chrome. The suit mirrored his musculature but perfected it. It shone with a brilliance that defied the dim light. The faceplate sealed over his mouth and nose, and two slits for eyes glowed with a piercing, electric blue light. He didn't feel heavy. He felt weightless. He felt limitless. System check complete. Fridy's voice echoed inside his skull, clear and crisp. Battery at 400%. Repulsors at functional capacity. Flight systems engaged. Izuku clenched his fist. The metal groaned, the sound of hydraulic strength. FRIDY. Izuku's voice sounded different, modulated, deeper, metallic. Get me out of here. Target destination, Tatooine District. Calculating trajectory. A section of the bunker's ceiling spiraled open, revealing a vertical shaft leading to the surface. Izuku crouched. He didn't know how to fly, but the suit knew. The interface read his intent. Up. Fast. Repulsors in his palms and boots flared with blinding white light. Boom. He didn't take off. He was fired like a bullet. The G-force hit him, but the suit's inertial dampeners absorbed it instantly. He shot up the shaft, bursting through the mound of trash on Dagobah Beach in an explosion of refuse and sand. He hung in the air for a split second, the ocean beneath him, the city lights ahead. Thrusters at maximum, Izuku commanded. He leaned forward, and the sonic boom shattered the windows of the parked cars at the beach entrance. A streak of silver and blue light tore across the Muzutafu skyline, the Tatooine shopping district. The situation was critical. The fires were spreading to the residential buildings. The heroes were paralyzed. It's no good. Death Arms yelled, shielding his face from the heat. None of us have the right quirks for this. We have to wait for someone else. There is no one else. A bystander screamed. In the center of the inferno, the sludge villain laughed, his liquid body undulating. That's right. Stay back. This kid is a goldmine. With his quirk in my body, I'll be invincible. Bakugo Katsuki couldn't breathe. His vision was tunneling. The slime was in his nose, his mouth. He tried to summon an explosion, but only a weak puff of smoke came from his palm. Is this it? Bakugo thought, his mind hazy. Am I going to die here? Where is Deku? Where is that useless nerd? Usually, he's watching. Tears of frustration and terror leaked from Bakugo's eyes. Don't worry, kid, the villain hissed. It'll only hurt for another 45 seconds. Suddenly, the air pressure changed. A high-pitched whine, like a diving jet engine, pierced the roar of the fire. Every head in the crowd turned upward. What is that? A missile? Look out! Something plummeted from the clouds. It wasn't falling. It was driving downward. It slammed into the pavement 10 meters from the villain, the impact creating a shockwave that extinguished the nearest fires instantly. Cracked concrete flew into the air. Dust swirled. As the dust settled, the crowd gasped. Crouched in the crater was a figure clad in armor unlike anything they had ever seen. It wasn't the bulky, colorful plastic of modern support gear. It was sleek, liquid silver, reflecting the flames. The eyes glowed with a predatory blue light. Slowly, the figure stood up. The armor shifted and rippled, the chrome plating settling into a combat stance. The chest piece housed a triangular uni-beam that hummed with terrifying power. Who is that? Empty Lady whispered. The sludge villain recoiled, sensing a threat. Another hero? You want to die too, Tin Man? Inside the helmet, Izuku's eyes darted across the HUD. Target, sludge villain. Composition, fluid, high viscosity. Weakness, high intensity heat to dehydrate, followed by sonic disruption. Hostage, Katsuki Bakugo. Vitals failing. Oxygen levels critical. FRIDY, Izuku thought, the command executing instantly. Isolate the hostage. Target the fluid, not the boy. Targeting locked. Izuku raised his right hand. The palm repulsor whined as it charged. Get off him, the metallic voice boomed, amplified by external speakers. The villain scoffed. Or what? You'll shoot? You'll hit the kid. He tightened his grip on Bakugo. Izuku didn't hesitate. He didn't tremble. The suit stabilized his arm with microscopic precision. Thrum PW. It wasn't a wild blast. It was a concentrated beam of repulsor energy, narrowed to the width of a pencil. It shot past Bakugo's ear and struck the sludge villain's eye. The villain shrieked, his hold loosening for a fraction of a second. Sonic cannon. Now, shoulder panels on the armor shifted, revealing two small oscillating dishes. They emitted a pulse of focused sound waves. The frequency was calibrated specifically to disrupt the surface tension of the sludge. The villain's body violently vibrated. He lost cohesion. The sludge turned to liquid soup, splashing away from Bakugo. Bakugo fell forward, coughing and gasping for air. "You brat!" The villain tried to reform, gathering his scattered mass. He surged forward, a tidal wave of muck aimed at the Silver Knight. Izuku didn't dodge. He stepped forward. "Unibeam at 5%, Izuku commanded. The triangle on his chest flashed. A cone of pure white light erupted from his chest. It hit the oncoming wave of sludge and flash vaporized it. Steam exploded outward, filling the street. The villain screamed as his moisture was stripped away, leaving him a dried, crusty husk on the pavement, unconscious and defeated. Silence fell over the district. The only sound was the crackling of the remaining fires and Bakugo's hacking coughs. Izuku lowered his hand. The steam swirled around his chrome armor. The pro-heroes stared. The crowd stared. All Might, hidden in the back, stared with wide, disbelief-filled eyes. He took him out in seconds, Kamui Woods muttered. Izuku walked over to Bakugo. The blond boy was on his hands and knees, looking up with blurred vision. He saw his reflection in the polished chrome leg of the savior. "You!" Bakugo rasped. "Who?" Izuku looked down at his tormentor. His childhood friend. The boy who had told him to take a swan dive off a roof. For a moment, Izuku considered revealing himself. He considered peeling back the mask and shouting, "See? I am here!" But Friday's voice whispered in his ear. Crowd density increasing. Police approaching. Recommendation: exit the operational area immediately. Izuku looked at the pros rushing toward him. He wasn't a licensed hero. This was vigilantism. He would be arrested. "Are you okay?" Izuku asked Bakugo. The voice modulator hid the tremble in his tone. Bakugo blinked, stunned by the mechanical voice. "I didn't need your help." Izuku smirked behind the faceplate. "Some things never change." "Sure," Izuku said. He turned to the heroes. "Wait!" Death Arms shouted. "Identify yourself." "You just used an unregistered quirk." Izuku paused. He looked at his chrome hand. "It's not a quirk," he said, loud enough for the cameras to pick up. Repulses in his feet flared. He lifted off the ground, hovering 10 feet in the air. He looked like a god of the new age. "It's the future." With a sonic boom that knocked the hats off the police officers, Izuku rocketed into the sky, disappearing into the clouds before anyone could react. Dagoba Beach, 1 hour later. The landing was less graceful than the takeoff. Izuku skidded across the sand, tumbling onto his back as the thrusters cut out. "Flight stabilizers require calibration," Friday noted. "Yeah. I noticed," Izuku groaned. He lay there for a moment, looking up at the stars. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion. The neural link was taxing. His brain felt like he had just taken 5 math exams in a row. "Retract mask," Izuku murmured. The liquid metal flowed away from his face, retreating into the collar of the suit. The cool night air hit his sweaty skin. He took a deep breath. He had done it. He had saved a life. He had stood amidst the fire and fear, and he hadn't frozen. But he wasn't All Might. He hadn't smiled. He hadn't offered comfort. He had been a weapon. Precise. Cold. Effective. "Is this?" Izuku looked at his hands, still encased in the armor. "Is this what a hero is?" "Heroism is a subjective construct," Friday replied. Tony Stark believed that a hero is a person who does what is necessary when those with power failed to act. "Today you acted." Izuku sat up. He looked at the pile of trash surrounding him. This beach, this was where the bunker was. This was his base now. Friday. "Yes, boss?" Izuku smiled weakly at the title. "We have a lot of work to do. I can't use this suit properly yet. I almost passed out just flying here. Your neural pathways need to acclimate to the load. And your physical body requires conditioning to withstand the G-forces. Also, this armor is currently running on emergency protocols. The Stark archives beneath us contain terabytes of data on engineering, combat strategy, and energy propulsion. You have much to learn." Izuku stood up. The suit felt lighter now. Or maybe he just felt stronger. 10 months, Izuku said, thinking of the UA entrance exam. I have 10 months. He looked at the ocean. Somewhere out there, All Might was probably looking for the mysterious vigilante. Somewhere, Bakugo was fuming, but Izuku didn't feel the crushing weight of inadequacy anymore. He felt the hum of the arc reactor interface against his chest. Let's get to work. The armor flowed over his face again, sealing him in. Under the streetlights, a skinny man in an oversized yellow suit coughed blood into a handkerchief. All Might watched the news replay on a shop window. The silver vigilante, the ticker read. New hero or new villain? He said it wasn't a quirk, All Might muttered to himself. He rewound the memory of the incident in his mind. The way the armor moved. The way the boy stood. It reminded him of something from the history books. Something from the chaotic days before the dawn of quirks. Iron. All Might whispered. He looked down at his hand. He had found no successor. The time was running out. And yet, watching the silver streak vanish into the sky, he felt a strange sensation. Not hope, exactly. But curiosity. The world was changing. And for the first time in a long time, All Might didn't know what was coming next. The silence of Dagoba Municipal Beach Park was usually only broken by the crashing of waves against rusted appliances, and the scuttling of crabs over tires. Tonight, however, the silence was heavy, pregnant with the aftermath of a sonic boom. Izuku Midoriya lay on his back amidst a pile of scrap metal, his chest heaving. The liquid silver of the Omega armor had retracted, pooling into a dense, shimmering bracelet around his left wrist. It looked like an oversized, futuristic watch, pulsing with a faint, rhythmic blue light, a heartbeat of its own. Steam rose from his skin. The coastal air was cold, but his body felt like a furnace. The neurofeedback loop, the handshake as FRIDY called it, left a lingering migraine behind his eyes, a dull throb that synchronized with his pulse. Warning, the AI's voice echoed, not from speakers, but through a bone conduction earpiece he had instinctively retained. Cortisol levels remain elevated. Dopamine levels are spiking. You are experiencing a post-combat adrenal crash. Recommendation: hydrate and sleep. I can't sleep, Izuku wheezed, staring up at the crescent moon. I actually did it. He clenched his hand, the hand that had fired the repulsor. It wasn't a dream. The heat was still ghosting over his palm. He hadn't just watched. He hadn't just analyzed. He had acted. You did, FRIDY replied, her voice dry. Though your flight telemetry was abysmal. You have the aerodynamic grace of a falling brick. Izuku let out a breathless, hysterical laugh. I'll work on it, young man. The voice stopped Izuku's heart cold. It wasn't the mechanical cool of his AI. It was a deep, resonant baritone that, even when whispered, carried the weight of a mountain. Izuku scrambled to his feet, stumbling over a rusted bicycle frame. He spun around. Standing at the edge of the clearing, framed by the mountains of trash, was All Might. But not the Titan he saw on TV. This was the skeleton. The deflated symbol. His large, sunken eyes were fixed on Izuku with an intensity that pinned the boy in place. All Might, Izuku stammered. His first instinct was to hide the bracelet, to cover the evidence of his defiance. All Might stepped forward, his footsteps crunching on the sand. I saw the news feeds. I saw the flight path. I followed the smoke trail. He gestured vaguely to the sky. You are the one from the rooftop, the Fanba. Izuku looked down. Yes, you dove in, All Might said. His tone was unreadable. When the pros held back. When I held back because I was too pathetic to maintain my form, you dove in. I couldn't watch him die, Izuku whispered, the truth tumbling out. My legs, they just moved. Well, the thrusters moved. But I wanted to go. All Might stopped a few feet away. That armor. It isn't a support item I've ever seen. And earlier you said you were quirkless. You asked me if a quirkless person could be a hero, and you said no, Izuku said. The memory of the rejection on the rooftop, only hours ago, yet feeling like a lifetime, sharpened his voice. He looked up, meeting the hero's gaze. You told me to be realistic. All Might flinched slightly. I did, so I got realistic, Izuku said, raising his left arm. The bracelet hummed. I realized that if I wasn't born with power, I had to build it. If nature wouldn't give me a sword, I'd forge one. All Might looked at the device. Technology? That thing that melted the villain? That was a machine? It's the Endosim Model 50, Izuku said, the knowledge flowing from the AI's briefing into his mind. It's a neuroreactive liquid smart metal. It's my power now. All Might sighed, a long, rattling exhalation. He sat down on a stack of old tires, looking suddenly very old. Technology has limits, young man. Batteries die. Metal breaks. A quirk is part of your soul. Relying entirely on a tool, it is dangerous. If that suit fails, you are just a civilian in a war zone. If your time limit runs out, aren't you just a civilian too? The question hung in the air, sharp as a knife. All Might's eyes widened. He looked at Izuku, really looked at him, for the first time. He didn't see a fanboy anymore. He saw a reflection. A desperate, powerless person trying to hold up the sky. Touché, All Might muttered. He rubbed his chin. But the law is the law. Vigilantism is illegal. Using a quirk, or a weapon of that magnitude, without a license is a crime. The police are looking for the silver vigilante. You could be arrested. I know, Izuku said. His hands were trembling, but his voice was steadying. But Kaken Bakugo is alive. If I had waited for a license, he'd be a corpse. All Might stood up again. The wind blew through his messy blonde bangs. I cannot condone this. As a hero, I should take you to the station. Izuku stiffened, ready to trigger the armor. FRDY whispered, combat protocols on standby. Targeting knee joints. But All Might continued, a small, weary smile touching his lips. As a man who was inspired by you today, I will look the other way. Just this once. Izuku blinked. What? I spoke to the press, All Might said. I told them the Silver Vigilante was a sidekick from overseas assisting me on a covert operation, and that he had to leave immediately. They bought it. You are in the clear. Izuku's knees gave out. He sat down hard on the sand. Why? Because on that rooftop, I crushed your dream, All Might said softly. And yet you still acted like a hero. More of a hero than I was today. He turned to leave, walking back toward the city lights. But listen to me, Midoriya. If you want to do this, if you truly want to walk this path of iron, you cannot do it in the shadows. You need training. You need legality. Go to Yue High. Prove that your suit is more than just a weapon. Prove that it is a hero's heart that drives it. All Might paused, glancing back over his shoulder. Do not make me regret this silence, young man. Then he was gone, leaving Izuku alone with the trash and the ghosts of the future. The next morning, the Stark legacy. Izuku didn't sleep that night. He sat in his room, the bracelet heavy on his wrist, staring at his computer screen. But he wasn't looking at hero forums. He was reading files. When he had returned to the bunker beneath the beach to park the suit's main mass, keeping only a small percentage in the bracelet for emergencies, FRIDY had unlocked the first tier of the Stark archives. It was overwhelming. Repulsor Tech 101. Arc Reactor Physics. Neurolinguistic Programming for AI Interfaces. Advanced Metallurgy. It was a library of lost knowledge. The world had focused so much on biological evolution, quirks, that mechanical evolution had stagnated. Support gear was clunky, external, and auxiliary. Stark Tech was integrated, seamless, and dominant. Mom? Izuku called out, walking into the kitchen. Inko Midoriya turned from the stove, looking anxious. She always looked anxious these days. Izuku. You're up early. Did you sleep okay? You looked so pale when you came home yesterday. I'm okay, Mom, Izuku said. He grabbed a piece of toast. He debated telling her. He wanted to. But how could he explain that he was hoarding a weapon of mass destruction created by a dead merchant of death? How could he explain he had jumped into a villain attack? If I tell her, she'll stop me, he realized. She loves me too much to let me be Iron Man. I've decided, Izuku said, taking a bite of toast. I'm going to apply for the UA Hero course. Inko froze. Her expression crumbled into that familiar, heartbreaking pity. Oh, Izuku, honey, without a quirk. I'm going to try, he said firmly. I found a new way to train. A new method. It's rigorous. I'll be spending a lot of time at Dagoba Beach. The garbage dump? Inko wrinkled her nose. It's not a dump, Izuku smiled, thinking of the chrome sanctuary beneath the filth. It's a gold mine. School, the ghost in the machine. Aldera Junior High was buzzing. The footage of the Silver Knight, the name hadn't settled yet, was everywhere. Did you see that laser? It wasn't a laser, it was a particle beam. Dude, it one-shot the sludge villain. Izuku walked to his desk, head down. Usually, he would be scribbling in a notebook, muttering theories. Today, he was silent. He was listening to a lecture on thermodynamics and closed systems being delivered directly to his auditory nerve by FRIDY. The heat dissipation of the Mark 50 is handled by the gap between the liquid nanoclusters, the AI explained. However, your biological body acts as a heatsink. If you overuse the unibeam, you will essentially cook your own internal organs. We need to upgrade the cooling sublayer. Got it, Izuku thought. Upgrade cooling. Maybe liquid nitrogen piping? No, too bulky. Peltier tiles? DKU. The shout shattered his concentration. An explosion slammed onto his desk, scorching the wood. Bakugo Katsuki stood over him, vibrating with rage. His eyes were bloodshot. He looked like a man who had seen a ghost. Keikaken, Izuku said, looking up. He didn't flinch. Bakugo noticed the lack of a flinch. It pissed him off even more. Don't give me that look. You were there yesterday. I saw you in the crowd before the sludge got me. You were crying like a baby. I was walking home, Izuku said calmly, and then that metal freak showed up, Bakugo hissed, leaning in close. And you know what? When he spoke, he sounded like a robot. But the way he moved, the way he looked at me, Bakugo grabbed Izuku's collar. It pissed me off. It pissed me off because for a second I thought. He trailed off. The idea was too absurd even for him. Deku was a pebble. The Silver Knight was a god. Thought what? Izuku asked. Nothing. Bakugo shoved him back. Just stay out of my way, you quirkless defect. I'm the only one from this dump going to you. I don't think you can ride the coattails of some vigilante incident. Bakugo stormed off. Izuku straightened his collar, heart rate steady, FRIDY noted. Adrenaline response suppressed. You are getting better at lying, boss. I'm not lying, Izuku thought. I'm just not telling the whole truth. The training, 10 months of hell. The montage of a hero's origin is often romanticized. It shows sweat, sunset runs, and a gradual increase in muscle mass set to inspiring music. Izuku's reality was different. Izuku's reality was math, engineering, and agony. Month 1, the foundation. The first step wasn't learning to fly. It was cleaning the beach. But it wasn't just civic service. This is inefficient, FRIDY criticized as Izuku dragged a rusted refrigerator across the sand. You are using your back, not your legs. And you are ignoring the raw materials. It's trash, Izuku grunted, sweat stinging his eyes. It is resources, the AI corrected. To maintain the Omega armor, we need palladium, gold, titanium, and copper. Scavenge. Analyze. Strip. So, the cleaning changed. Izuku didn't just move trash, he dismantled it. He took apart microwaves for the magnetrons. He stripped cars for the copper wiring. He hauled engine blocks to build his core strength. Every night he descended into the bunker. FRIDY ran him through neuro-load tests. He had to sit in a chair while the AI flooded his brain with data, tactical scenarios, flight calculations, energy distribution metrics. It felt like a migraine that lasted 4 hours. The suit responds to thought, FRIDY explained. If your mind is slow, the suit is slow. If your mind is cluttered, the suit glitches. You must achieve zero latency. Izuku practiced meditation. He learned to clear his mind of fear, of doubt, of Deku, and focus purely on objective. Month 3, the engineer. Izuku's hands were covered in small cuts and grease stains. He had stopped taking notes in his hero analysis notebooks. Now, he carried a tablet connected to the Stark database. He was failing math at school, not because he didn't understand it, but because he was using calculus methods from 2100 while the teacher was asking for algebra from 2020. Midoriya, his teacher sighed. Why did you solve this trajectory problem using repulsor harmonics? Extra credit? In the bunker Izuku was building. The Omega armor was perfect, but it was built for Tony Stark. Izuku's body was smaller, denser in some ways, weaker in others. He worked on the undersuit. A bodysuit made of smart weave fabric to wear beneath the liquid metal. It monitored his vitals and provided a layer of cushioning against kinetic impact. You have an aptitude for this, Fridy commented one night as Izuku soldered a microcircuit with a magnifying glass. Stark would have found you tolerable. Izuku beamed. Tolerable? I'll take it. Month 6, flight and failure. Thrusters at 10%. Boom. Izuku spun uncontrollably, slamming face first into a pile of sandbags he had set up in the lower cavern. Stabilizers offline, Fridy droned. You are overcompensating with your left boot. Izuku spat out sand. It's hard. It's like balancing on a marble, while the marble is moving at 60 miles per hour. Iron Man makes it look easy. Iron Man was a genius billionaire playboy philanthropist. I'm a teenager with anxiety. Excuses detected. Rebooting flight protocol. Again. They drilled until Izuku vomited. They drilled until he could hover. Then they drilled until he could dart. Then they drilled until he could weave through a chaotic obstacle course of flying junk that Fridy hurled at him using the lab's tractor beams. He learned that flight wasn't about forcing the air to move. It was about becoming aerodynamic. He learned to trust the suit, to let the liquid metal shift his center of gravity automatically. Month 9, the mind and the metal. The beach was unrecognizable. The mountains of trash were gone, replaced by pristine white sand and a sparkling coastline. The entrance to the bunker was now concealed by a holographic rock formation. But the biggest change was Izuku. He wasn't just muscular, he was wired. His eyes tracked movement with scary precision. He walked with a subtle, calculated grace. He looked people in the eye. He stood in the center of the bunker. The silver sarcophagus was gone. The armor was now fully integrated into the bleeding-edge storage mode, nanites stored within the hollow spaces of the undersuit's lattice, and the bulk mass stored in a subspace cache that Fridy managed, summonable via the bracelet. Combat simulation, level 7, Izuku ordered. Holographic drones materialized. Armor up. It was fluid. Instant. The silver poured from the bracelet and the suit collar, enveloping him in a blink. The faceplates slammed shut. Clang. The blue eyes glowed. The drones fired lasers. Izuku didn't just dodge, he danced. He calculated the trajectory, twisted his torso, and let the beam graze his shoulder pauldron, deflecting harmlessly. He raised his hand. Repulsor. PW. 3 drones down. A heavy drone charged. Izuku shifted his stance. The liquid metal on his right arm expanded, forming a heavy, dense shield. The drone crashed into it and crumpled. Izuku grabbed the drone, the metal on his arm shifting again into a piledriver piston, and smashed it into the floor. Simulation complete, Fridy said. Time, 4.2 seconds. A new personal best. Izuku powered down, the helmet retracting. He was sweating, but he was smiling. A fierce, sharp smile. I'm ready, he said. The day of the exam. The sun rose over the Yue High School campus, bathing the glass structures in gold. It was the day of judgment. Izuku stood at the massive gates. He wore his standard middle school uniform, but beneath it, the black smart weave undersuit hugged his skin. On his left wrist was the platinum bracelet. He took a deep breath. Get out of my way, Deku. Bakugo walked past him, shouldering him roughly. Don't trip and die on the written exam. It would be embarrassing for me to know you. Izuku didn't stumble. He barely moved. He watched Bakugo walk away, stress levels increasing. Fridy whispered in his ear. Shall I initiate the calming playlist? No music, Izuku muttered. Game face. He walked through the gates. The written exam. It was almost laughable. After spending 10 months studying quantum mechanics, advanced robotics, An AI architecture under the tutelage of the most advanced computer in existence. High school math felt like kindergarten. Izuku finished the test in half the allotted time. He spent the rest of the time mentally optimizing the fuel efficiency of his thrusters. The orientation. Present Mike was screaming. Izuku was barely listening to the hype. He was analyzing the rules. Robots. 3 types. Points based on difficulty. No point in fighting the zero-pointer. Excuse me. A tall boy with glasses and engines in his legs stood up. Ida Tenya. He berated Present Mike for the handout error and then turned, pointing a finger directly at Izuku. And you! With the curly hair. You've been muttering to yourself this entire time. It's distracting. If you're here on a field trip, you should leave immediately. The auditorium went silent. Everyone stared at Izuku. The old Izuku would have shrunk, stammered, and apologized. Izuku tapped his ear. Sorry. I was running a diagnostic on my support gear. I'll lower the volume. Ida blinked, caught off guard by the calm response. Oh. Well, see that you do. The practical exam, Battle Center B. The massive gates of the mock city loomed ahead. Izuku stood in the crowd of nervous examinees. He saw Ochako Uraraka trying to calm her nerves. He saw others stretching. He checked his bracelet. Stealth mode is off, FRIDY confirmed. Limiter is set to non-lethal. We are not here to kill robots, boss. We are here to disable them with extreme prejudice. Right. And start. Present Mick's voice boomed from the tower. There are no countdowns in real battles. Run! The crowd hesitated. Izuku didn't. He tapped the bracelet twice. SSSSHHH clank. The sound of shifting metal turned heads. Liquid silver erupted from his wrist, spiraling up his arm, across his chest, and down his legs. In less than 2 seconds, the skinny boy was gone. In his place stood the Iron Man. The sun glinted off the polished chrome. The unibeam hummed. Izuku engaged the thrusters. He didn't run. He launched. He flew over the heads of the stunned examinees, trailing a wake of displaced air. What is that? Someone screamed. Is that a student? Izuku hit the main street of the mock city. A cluster of 1-pointer and 2-pointer robots turned their sensors toward him. Targets acquired. The HUD flashed red. Let's dance, Izuku said. He raised both hands. He didn't just fire. He choreographed. He spun in the air, using his flight stabilizers to pivot. Blast. 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 3 robots exploded in showers of sparks and oil. He landed, the metal boots cracking the pavement. A 3-pointer, a massive, tank-like drone, rolled toward him, firing rubber bullets. Shield. The nanites on his left arm formed a kite shield. The bullets pinged off harmlessly. Countermeasure, micro-missiles. Shoulder pods opened. 6 tiny projectiles, no bigger than markers, shot out. They sought the joints of the robot. The weak points FRIDY had identified in a nanosecond. Pop 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 pop. Small, contained explosions severed the robot's treads and sensor array. It slumped, disabled. 6 points, Izuku counted. He took off again, scanning the city. He was a blur of silver motion. He wasn't fighting, he was harvesting. The observation room. The pro-heroes watched the screens in stunned silence. Who is that kid? Midnight asked, leaning forward. I can't even see his face. Izuku Midoriya, Nisa said, holding a file. Quirk, none registered. None? Vlad King frowned. That's a lie. Look at him. He's a transforming metal type. No, All Might said from the back of the room. He was leaning against the wall, his eyes locked on the monitor. That is not a quirk. That is a suit. A suit? Snipe tipped his hat. To have that kind of reaction time, that kind of power output, he must have built it himself? At 15? He is dominating the field, Aizawa muttered, his eyes narrowed. But he's efficient. Cold, almost. He's not saving anyone. He's just hunting points. True heroism reveals itself in crisis, Nisa said, his paw hovering over a large red button. Let's see how he handles the wall. The 0-pointer. The ground shook. Buildings crumbled. The 0-pointer rose. It was colossal, taller than the skyscrapers of the mock city. Its massive tread crushed the pavement. The students panicked. Run! It's huge! It's not worth any points. Izuku hovered at rooftop level, watching the dust cloud. Logic dictates retreat, FRIDY advised. The target offers no strategic value. Agreed, Izuku said. He turned to fly away. Help! The voice was faint, buried under the rumble of the robot. Izuku froze. The HUD zoomed in. Ochako Uraraka was trapped under rubble. The massive tread of the zero-pointer was descending. She couldn't move. FRIDY, Izuku said. Calculated probability of rescue, 12%. Probability of injury, 88%. Divert power to thrusters. Route all auxiliary power to the unibeam. Boss, that will drain the battery to 10%. You will drop out of the sky. Do it! Izuku didn't fly away. He flew at it. He broke the sound barrier. A silver dart shooting toward the Titan. Down on the ground, Ochako looked up, tears in her eyes. She saw the metal foot descending. Then, she saw a flash of light. Izuku slammed into the air in front of the robot's face. He was an ant facing a god. Hey, ugly! Izuku shouted, amplified by the suit's speakers. The robot's sensors focused on him. Izuku hovered, his chest plate opening up. The triangular arc reactor began to glow with a blinding, unstable intensity. The air around him shimmered from the heat. Unibeam. Maximum output. Boom. It wasn't a beam, it was a torrent of energy. A massive column of white-hot plasma erupted from his chest. It struck the zero-pointer directly in its central processor head. Metal melted like wax. The head of the giant robot simply vaporized. The blast continued, carving a hole through the clouds above. The massive body of the robot groaned, tipped backward, and crashed to the ground with an earth-shattering thud, missing Uraraka by meters. Izuku hung in the air for a second, smoke pouring from his chest vents. Power levels critical, FRIDY warned. System shutdown imminent. Worth it, Izuku whispered. The lights in his eyes flickered and died. The suit locked up, becoming a dead weight. He fell from the sky. Oh no! Uraraka screamed. She slapped her own face, floating herself, and desperately swam through the air. She tagged Izuku just before he hit the pavement. He halted, inches from the ground, and dropped gently as she released her quirk. Release, release. Uraraka dry-heaved, exhausted. Izuku lay there, encased in the scorched, inactive silver armor. The faceplate hissed and slid open. Izuku gasped for air, his face covered in sweat, his hair matted. The silence returned. Then, the murmurs started. Did you see that? He took out the zero-pointer, with one shot. Ida Tenya stared, his mouth agape. Bakugo stood nearby, his hands trembling, not with rage, but with something else. Fear? Respect? Deku. Bakugo whispered. Recovery girl hobbled onto the scene. All right. Move aside. Let me see the wounded. She looked down at Izuku. My goodness. No broken bones? That's a first for a stun like that. Just, overheated, Izuku panted. He looked up at the sky, where the hole in the clouds was slowly closing. I did it, he thought. I'm not useless. I'm Iron Man. The morning sun that rose over Muzidafu did not feel like the dawn of a new day. It felt like the opening of a courtroom door. Today was judgment. Izuku Midoriya stood before the mirror in his bedroom, buttoning the collar of his black gakuren. His hands, once callous from notebook scribbling, were now scarred and roughened by 10 months of stripping copper wire, welding titanium alloy, and dragging engine blocks through the sand of Dagoba Beach. He looked at his reflection. The boy looking back wasn't the trembling, teary-eyed Deku of a year ago. There was a sharpness to his jawline, a density to his frame that the uniform struggled to hide. But the most significant change was invisible to the naked eye. System check, Izuku whispered, his voice barely disturbing the silence of the room. Neural interface, optimal. The cool, disembodied voice of FRIDY resonated directly against his auditory nerve. Nanotech colony density in the bloodstream is at 100%. Arc node output is steady. You are running hot, boss. Heart rate is 110. I'm nervous, Izuku admitted, adjusting his red shoes. Unnecessary. You have spent the last 300 days integrating the most advanced weapon system in human history into your biology. A high school entrance exam is statistically insignificant. It's UAFRIDY, Izuku sighed, grabbing his backpack. It's not just a school. It's the Olympus of heroism. He glanced at his wrists. He wore 2 silver bracelets, brushed platinum, sleek, and seamless. To an observer, they were stylish accessories. To Izuku, they were the primary control nodes, the anchors for the Model 50 endosim armor that currently lay dormant within his very marrow. The bonding process had been excruciating. The outline of the memory made him shudder. Replacing marrow with smart metal fluid. The fever dreams. The feeling of his own skeleton vibrating. But he had survived it. He was no longer just a pilot. He was the chassis. Izuku? His mother's voice came from the hallway. You're going to be late. Coming, Mom. He walked out, grabbing a piece of toast. Inko Midoriya looked him over, her eyes wet with that perpetual worry, but also a new, tentative pride. She didn't know about the armor, not the full extent of it. She thought he had been training with a heavy-duty support item developer online. She didn't know her son was walking around with a weapon of mass destruction inside his veins. Dear best, she squeezed his hand. I will, Izuku promised. He didn't say I'll try. He said I will. He stepped out the door. The world was bright. The air smelled of exhaust and cherry blossoms. Destination, UA High School. FRIDY plotted the route on his retinal display, a translucent blue line hovering over the pavement. ETA, 20 minutes on foot. 45 seconds via flight. We walk, Izuku muttered. Low profile. Remember the protocol. Stealth mode active. Boring, but noted. The gates of UA High were massive, a barrier between the mundane and the extraordinary. The structure of the school was all glass and steel, gleaming like a fortress of the future. Hundreds of students swarmed the entrance, a sea of different uniforms, mutations, and dreams. Izuku walked with a measured pace. He scanned the crowd, his HUD automatically tagging potential threats and quirk signatures based on visual cues. Target male. Mutation, gigantification of hands. Target female. Mutation, telekinetic hovering. It was a habit he couldn't turn off. The suit was always analyzing. Out of my way, Deku. The voice was a growl, low and dangerous. Izuku didn't flinch. He stopped, letting the figure pass. Katsuki Bakugo stomped past him, his shoulders hunched, radiating pure aggression. But as he passed, Bakugo paused. He glanced sideways at Izuku. For 10 months, they had barely spoken. Izuku had vanished into the trash heaps of the beach, and Bakugo had buried himself in his own training. But Bakugo had noticed the change. The way Izuku didn't flinch when a door slammed. The way his eyes seemed to look through people rather than at them. Don't think you can stand in the same ring as me, Bakugo hissed, his voice lacking its usual explosive volume, replaced by a tight, confused tension. You're quirkless. No matter what tricks you pulled at the sludge incident, you're empty. Izuku looked at Bakugo. The HUD zoomed in on Bakugo's palms, detecting the nitroglycerin sweat buildup. I'm not empty, Kaken, Izuku said calmly. I'm upgraded. Bakugo's eyes widened slightly. He scoffed, turning away. We'll see. Don't die. He stormed off. Izuku exhaled. Cortisol spike detected in subject Bakugo. FRIDY noted. He is afraid. He's confused, Izuku corrected. He's used to being the only protagonist in the world. He doesn't know how to handle an ensemble cast. Izuku took a step forward, his foot catching on an uneven paving stone. He tipped forward. Gravity took hold. Balance correction engaged. Before he could even gasp, a microscopic burst of repulsor energy fired from the sole of his shoe, invisible, silent, and brief. It righted his center of gravity instantly. Instead of falling, Izuku turned the stumble into a smooth step, looking like he had merely leaned forward to inspect the ground. Whoa, a girl's voice chirped beside him. Nice save. I was about to catch you. Izuku turned. A girl with a round face, brown bob, and rosy cheeks was smiling at him. Ochako Uraraka. Oh, thanks, Izuku said. I'd, have good balance. I'm so nervous. She beamed, pumping her fists. But let's do our best, right? Right. She waved and ran off. Izuku watched her go. Social interaction successful. Fridy deadpanned. You managed to form a sentence without stuttering. Progress. Shut up, Fri. The written exam. The lecture hall was vast and silent, filled with the scratching of pencils. Izuku sat in row 7, seat 12. The test paper in front of him was thick. English, math, history, hero law, physics. He flipped open the booklet. Question 1. Calculate the trajectory of a projectile with a mass of 5 kilograms launched at a 45-degree angle with a drag coefficient of... Izuku stared at it. It was rudimentary. It was Newtonian physics. He had spent the last month studying quantum entanglement and nanotech propulsion theory with an AI that could simulate the universe. Shall I autofill the answers via the retinal projection? Fridy offered. No, Izuku thought. That's cheating. Besides, I know this. His pencil moved. He didn't just solve the problems, he optimized them. For the math questions, he provided 3 different proofs. For the hero law essay, he cited obscure precedents from the pre-Quark era regarding vigilante legislation, drawing parallels to modern statutes. He finished the 3-hour exam in 45 minutes. He spent the remaining time staring out the window, watching the clouds. He was tapping his finger against the desk in a rhythmic pattern. Tap. Tap tap. Tap. You are bored, boss. I'm ready for the real test, Izuku thought. I'm ready to let the suit breathe. Across the aisle, Bakugo was glaring at the back of Izuku's head. Why isn't he sweating? Why isn't he mumbling? The nerd usually vibrates like a broken controller during tests. The orientation. Everybody say hey. President Mick's voice boomed through the auditorium, amplified by his quirk. The silence that followed was deafening. Izuku sat in the darkness, the blue light of his HUD dimly illuminating his pupils. He was running diagnostics on the Omega Armor's weapon systems. Repulsors, 100%. Unibeam, 100%. Micro-missiles, loaded. Liquid metal viscosity, optimal. President Mike continued explaining the rules. 3 robots. 1-pointer, 2-pointer, 3-pointer. Destroy them to earn points. Excuse me, sir. A spotlight hit a tall, bespectacled boy in the middle rows. Ida Tenya. He stood with rigid posture. The handout clearly lists 4 types of villains. If this is a printing error, you should be ashamed. And you. He whipped around, pointing a finger directly at Izuku. Izuku blinked, the HUD overlay fading. You with the curly hair. You've been tapping your wrist for the last 10 minutes. It is distracting. If you are here to play with your jewelry, you should leave immediately. The auditorium rippled with laughter. Izuku felt the heat rise in his cheeks, old habits dying hard. But then, the cool logic of the suit washed over him. The interface stabilized his heart rate. Izuku stood up. The laughter died down. He didn't look ashamed. He looked annoyed. It's not jewelry, Izuku said, his voice carrying surprisingly well in the acoustic hall. It's a synchronization node for my support equipment. I'm calibrating it so I don't accidentally blow up the testing center. Silence. Blow up. Ada lowered his hand, looking confused. Also, Izuku continued, looking at President Mike. The 4th robot is likely a gimmick. 0 points. An obstacle to avoid. Standard game design logic. It forces crisis management rather than combat. President Mike grinned, giving a thumbs up. Bingo. Listener 2234 is correct. The 4th robot is the 0-pointer. It's just an obstacle. Run away from it. Ida turned red, bowed stiffly to Izuku. I see. Insightful. I apologize for my rudeness. He sat down. Izuku sat down. Assertiveness protocols engaging. Fridy noted. You are evolving, Izuku. I just want to get to the fighting, Izuku muttered. Battle Center B. The gates of the mock city were towering, looming over the crowd of nervous teenagers. Izuku stood in the back, stretching. He wore a simple dark green tracksuit now, having changed in the locker rooms. But he still wore the bracelets. He saw Uraraka nearby, looking like she was about to throw up. He considered going over to her, but Ida blocked his path. You, Ida said, looking down at him. You were calm in the hall. But you have no equipment. No armor. Just those bracelets. Are you an emitter type? Something like that, Izuku said, rolling his neck. I hope your skill matches your confidence. Start. Present Mix's voice screamed from the observation tower. There are no countdowns in real battles. Run. Run. Die. I mean, fight. The crowd hesitated, confused by the sudden start. Izuku didn't. FRIDY mask on. Izuku tapped his wrists together. SHHH clank. The sound was liquid and heavy. From the platinum bracelets, a torrent of silver fluid erupted. It moved faster than the eye could track, spiraling up his arms, engulfing his chest, shooting down his legs. It didn't look like mechanical plating snapping together. It looked like mercury growing over a skeleton. In 1.5 seconds the tracksuit was gone, replaced by the Mark 50 Omega armor. It was a masterpiece of sleek, predator curves. Chrome and silver plating that shimmered like oil. The faceplate slid down from the helmet, sealing with a hiss of pressurized gas. The eyes lit up, two piercing, rectangular slits of electric blue. The triangular arc reactor on his chest hummed with the power of a small star. The students near him gasped, stumbling back. What the hell? Is that metal? Izuku didn't walk. The repulsors in his boots flared with white light. Boom! He didn't run through the gate. He flew over it. He launched himself into the air, breaking the sound barrier instantly, leaving a shockwave that knocked the nearest student flat on their butt. He soared over the mock city streets, the wind roaring against his audiological sensors, filtered down to a gentle breeze by the AI. Targets acquired. FRIDY highlighted the city below in red outlines. Sector 4 has the highest density of hostiles. Drop me, Izuku commanded. He cut the thrusters. He plummeted from the sky like a silver meteor. Below him, a group of 3 two-pointer robots, resembling scorpions, were menacing a student. Izuku landed in the center of the group. The impact cracked the asphalt, sending a spiderweb of fissures outward. The robots turned their sensors toward him. Target locked, the robots intoned. Izuku stood up, the liquid metal shifting on his shoulders to form 2 small missile pods. Too slow, his voice came out modulated, deep and metallic. Thwip thwip thwip. Micromissiles the size of pens shot out. They spiraled in the air and struck the robots in their joint servos. Bang! 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 Explosions rocked the street. The robots collapsed into burning heaps of scrap. 6 points, FRIDY counted. Izuku didn't stop. He dashed forward, using his thrusters to skate just inches above the ground. A 3-pointer, a massive tank tread robot, rolled around the corner, leveling a Gatling gun at him. Shield, Izuku thought. The nanites on his left arm flowed outward, crystallizing into a teardrop-shaped energy shield. The rubber bullets pinged off it harmlessly. Izuku closed the distance. He didn't punch it. He slammed his palm onto the robot's chassis. Technopathy interface, engage. From his palm, tendrils of silver liquid shot into the robot's data port. Inside the HUD, Izuku saw the robot's code. It was primitive. Laughably simple. Override command, target hostiles. Exclude humanoid signatures. In less than a second, the robot's eye turned from red to blue. Defend me, Izuku ordered. The 3-pointer spun its turret around and opened fire on a 1-pointer that was sneaking up behind Izuku, blowing it apart. Points for the assist? Izuku asked. Technically, you neutralized the threat by subverting it, FRIDY said. I'm logging it as a kill. Izuku blasted off again. The observation room. The dark room filled with screens was silent, save for the hum of the servers. The staff of UA watched the carnage. Who is that? Midnight asked, her eyes wide. I can't even see the kid inside. Is that a mutation quirk? Creating armor? No, power loader. The support hero leaned forward, his excavator claws clicking on the desk. Look at the fluidity. That's not organic. That's allo. But it moves like skin. I've never seen tech like that, not even from Ireland. He's efficient, Vlad King grunted. He's not wasting movement. He flies, he shoots, he hacks. He's treating this like a tactical simulation, not a brawl. In the back of the room, All Might stood in his skeletal form, clutching a water bottle. He watched the silver blur tear through the city. Young Midoriya, All Might thought. You took my warning to heart. You aren't hiding. You're showing them. You're showing them that iron can rival flesh. He has 50 points already, Nisa squeaked, sipping tea. Combat ability is undeniable. Intelligence is high. Look how he uses the environment. But, Nisa's paw hovered over a large red button encased in plastic. A hero is not defined by how they fight when they are winning. A hero is defined by how they act when they are facing the impossible. Nisa pressed the button. Battle center be the climax. The ground lurched. It wasn't a vibration, it was an earthquake. Buildings swayed. Glass shattered. Izuku had just finished repulsor blasting a row of one-pointers when the shadow fell over him. He looked up. And up. And up. The 0-pointer was colossal. It was taller than the tallest building in the Mock City. A green behemoth of metal that blocked out the sun. Its single red eye was the size of a swimming pool. Threat level, extreme. FRIDY warned, the red text flashing urgently. Structural integrity of surrounding buildings is failing. Recommendation, tactical retreat. This target is worth 0 points. Around him, the other examinees were screaming. Run! It's huge! Don't mess with that thing! Students were scrambling away, dust choking the air. Izuku engaged his flight stabilizers, hovering 10 feet off the ground. Logic says run, he thought. The test is about points. I have enough points. He turned to fly away. Ow! The cry was faint, buried under the grinding roar of the 0-pointer's tracks. But the suit's audio filters isolated it. Izuku stopped. He spun around. Through the dust cloud, his thermal vision picked up a heat signature, Ochako Uraraka. She was on the ground, pinned under a slab of concrete that had fallen from a crumbling building. She was struggling, her face pale with terror. The 0-pointer was looming over her. Its massive metal hand was reaching down, not to grab, but to crush the debris in its path. She couldn't move. She was going to be flattened. Boss! FRIDY said, her voice calm but sharp. Target is in the crush zone. Time to impact, 8 seconds. Can I lift the debris? Izuku asked. Not in time. And the robot will step on both of you. Can I carry her? Negative. You can't generate enough speed to reach her and exit the zone before the hand comes down. Izuku looked at the massive metal hand descending. Then we remove the hand, Izuku said. Warning! Unibeam requires 80% power divert from shielding and life support. You will overheat. You will be defenseless afterward. Do it! Izuku didn't fly toward Uraraka. He flew toward the robot. He pushed the thrusters to 200%. The G-force slammed him against the inside of the suit, squeezing the air from his lungs. He shot upward, a silver bullet against the green giant. He stopped in midair, hovering directly in front of the 0-pointer's face, right between its eyes. Hey! Big guy! Izuku screamed, the external speakers maxed out. The robot paused, its sensors focusing on the gnat buzzing in front of it. Inside the helmet, Izuku was sweating buckets. The heat was rising rapidly. Rerouting power to chest capacitor, FRIDY announced. The triangular arc reactor on his chest began to glow. It went from blue to white to a blinding, incandescent violet. The air around Izuku rippled with heat distortion. Chest repulsor. Unibeam. Izuku grabbed his own chest piece with his hands to brace himself. Fire! Boom! The sound was unlike anything the students had heard. It wasn't an explosion. It was the sound of the atmosphere being torn apart. A beam of pure, concentrated plasma erupted from Izuku's chest. It was thick, blindingly bright, and carried the heat of a sun. It struck the 0-pointer's face. There was no resistance. The metal didn't just melt, it evaporated. The beam punched straight through the robot's head, out the back, and continued into the sky, parting the clouds for a mile. The 0-pointer's head vanished. The massive body jerked, the internal systems fried by the electromagnetic surge. It groaned, a sound of twisting metal, and began to tilt backward, falling away from Uraraka. Crash! The giant hit the ground, shaking the entire city. Izuku hovered in the air for 1 second longer. Smoke poured from the vents of his suit. The silver metal was glowing cherry red in places. System overheat. FRIDY whispered, her voice glitching. Emergency, shut down. The lights in the suit's eyes died. The thrusters cut out. Izuku fell. He dropped like a stone, a dead weight of metal and flesh. The ground was rushing up fast. He was too exhausted to even scream. Slap. A hand touched his faceplate. He stopped falling. Izuku floated there, inches from the pavement. He looked to the side, his vision blurry. Ochako Uraraka, covered in dust, one leg dragging, was holding her hands together in a release sign. She was vomiting sparkles, her nausea limit reached, but she had used her quirk on him. Release. She gasped. Izuku dropped the remaining inch to the ground. Clang, the suit hissed. The faceplate unlatched and slid open. Izuku gasped, sucking in the cool air. His face was drenched in sweat, his hair plastered to his forehead. Steam rose from the armor. Silence descended on Battle Center B. The students crept out from their hiding spots. They looked at the headless carcass of the zero-pointer. They looked at the smoking silver figure on the ground. Did he just kill the zero-pointer? With one shot? What is he? Ida Tenya walked through the crowd. He stopped, staring down at Izuku. His glasses were crooked. He looked from the robot to the boy. He sacrificed his own score, Ida whispered, realizing the truth. He had plenty of points. He disabled himself to save her. Time's up. Present Mike yelled. The siren wailed. Recovery Girl was already moving through the crowd, handing out gummies. She reached Izuku. Oh dearie me, she tooted, touching the hot metal of the suit's shoulder. You look like a baked potato in foil. Can you move? Just need a minute, Izuku wheezed. System rebooting. He looked over at Uraraka, who was being helped up by another student. She looked at him and gave a weak thumbs up. Izuku smiled, then let his head drop back against the pavement. The aftermath. 1 week later, Izuku sat in his room. The suit was dormant, hiding in his blood and the bracelets on his desk. He was staring at a letter. The envelope was heavy. It had the Yui seal in wax. Inko was pacing in the hallway, muttering prayers. Izuku tore it open. A holographic disc fell out. It activated, projecting a screen onto the wall. All Might appeared. He was in his hero form, for the camera, grinning his trademark grin. I am here. As a projection, Izuku sat up straighter. Young Midoriya. All Might boomed. You have waited a long time. The results are in. The screen shifted to a scoreboard. First, the written exam. Perfect score. Not surprising, considering your intellect. Izuku nodded. That was expected. But the practical. Let's look at the numbers. Villain points, 68. A formidable score. That alone would have passed you, Izuku exhaled. He had passed. But... All Might leaned into the camera. A hero course is not just about destroying villains. How could we ignore the most important thing? The essence of heroism. A video clip played. It was the moment Izuku turned back. The moment he flew toward the zero-pointer instead of away from it. You risked everything to save a fellow examinee. When others ran, you flew into the fire. This is the mark of a true hero. Rescue points. All Might shouted. 60 points. The total score flashed on the screen. 128 points. First place. All Might declared. Izuku Midoriya. Welcome to your hero academia. The hologram faded. Izuku sat in the silence. He looked at his hand. He looked at the bracelet. He didn't cry this time. He didn't sob. He clenched his fist. The nanotech swirled under his skin, responding to his emotion, a faint blue glow emitting from his veins for just a second. FRIDY, Izuku said. Yes, boss? Update my status. Status, Yui student. Class 1A, Izuku smiled. A smile that looked a little bit like Tony Stark's. Let's build something new. The door to Class 1A was massive. A towering slab of reinforced steel and oak that stood nearly 15 feet high, dwarfing the students who stood before it. For most, it was a symbol of the grandeur of UA, high, a testament to the plus-ultra spirit. For Izuku Midoriya, standing in the hallway with his breath caught in his throat, it was a barrier. Heart rate elevated to 105 BPM. FRIDY's voice murmured, a ghost in his auditory nerve. You are projecting anxiety, boss. It is inefficient. I can't help it, Izuku whispered, his hand hovering over the handle. He adjusted the cuff of his blazer. Beneath the fabric, the platinum bracelet on his wrist felt cool and heavy, a constant reminder of the burden and the power he carried. This is it. The hero course. The dream. It is a classroom. The AI countered dryly. Contains desks, a chalkboard, and 20 hormonal adolescents with dangerous mutations. Treat it as a hostile environment if it helps. That doesn't help, FRI. Izuku took a deep breath, steeling himself. He wasn't the same trembling boy from middle school. He had stared down the zero-pointer. He had forged his body in the fires of the Stark protocols. He pushed the door open. The noise hit him instantly. Do not put your feet on the desk. Ha! Who do you think you are, Four Eyes? You think this fancy school makes you better than me? It is disrespectful to the upperclassmen who use these desks. And to the craftsmen who built them. Izuku froze. The tableau before him was a nightmare scenario. Ida Tenya, the stiff, robotic boy from the entrance exam, was chopping the air with his hands, lecturing none other than Katsuki Bakugo. Bakugo reclined in his chair, feet crossed on the desk, wearing a scowl that could curdle milk. Upon hearing the door slide open, both boys turned. Oh, Ida straightened up, adjusting his glasses. It's you. The class went silent. All eyes turned to Izuku. He felt the familiar crawl of social panic, but before he could stammer, FRIDY highlighted Ida in a HUD overlaid on his vision. Subject, Tenya Ida. Status, friendly. Threat level, low. I am Ida Tenya, from Semi-Private Academy. The tall boy marched over, extending a hand. I must apologize for my behavior during the exam. I misjudged you. You perceived the true nature of the test, the rescue component, while I was blinded by the surface objective. You were the superior candidate. Izuku blinked, taking the hand. I'm Midoriya. Izuku Midoriya. And I didn't really figure it out. I just acted. Humility, Ida nodded solemnly. A trait of a true hero, TCH. The sound cut through the air like a whip. Izuku looked past Ida. Bakugo was staring at him. There was no screaming, no explosions. Just a cold, calculating glare. Since the entrance exam, since the zero-pointer incident, Bakugo had been quiet. It was a quiet that terrified Izuku more than the noise. Deku, Bakugo acknowledged, the nickname dripping with a new kind of venom, suspicion. You made it, a cheerful voice chimed in. Izuku turned to see Ochako Uraraka beaming at him. I was hoping you'd be in this class. You were amazing with that laser beam thing. How are your burns? Is your suit okay? I'm fine, Izuku managed a smile. Thanks to Recovery Girl. I wonder who our teacher is, Uraraka chirped, looking around. Proximity alert. FRIDY interrupted. Biosignature detected on the floor level. Behind you, Izuku spun around. Lying on the floor in the hallway, encased in a bright yellow sleeping bag, was a man. He looked like a caterpillar that had given up on life. His hair was messy black tangles, his eyes bloodshot and tired. He sucked on a jelly pouch with the enthusiasm of a corpse. If you're here to play friends, the caterpillar mumbled, unzipping the bag to reveal a disheveled man in black fatigues. Go somewhere else. The class gasped. The man stood up, scratching his stubble. It took you 8 seconds to quiet down. Time is a limited resource. You lot aren't rational enough. He walked to the podium, his gaze sweeping over the class with bored indifference. I'm your homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa. Nice to meet you. Subject identified. FRIDY supplied instantly, pulling from the Hero Network database Izuku had hacked, or rather, requested access to via guest protocols. Shota Aizawa. Hero name Eraserhead, Underground Hero. Quirk, Erasure. Specialty, Ambush and Capture. Izuku's eyes widened. Eraserhead? The hero who hates media? This is our teacher? Aizawa reached into his sleeping bag and pulled out a stack of blue gym uniforms. Put these on and meet me on the grounds, he said, turning his back. We're doing a quirk apprehension test. A test? The class chorused. What about the entrance ceremony? The orientation? Uraraka asked. Aizawa paused at the door. If you want to be heroes, you don't have time for frilly ceremonies. UA is known for its freestyle teaching methods. That applies to the teachers as well. He glanced back, his dark eyes lingering specifically on Izuku for a fraction of a second too long. Softball throw. Standing long jump. 50-meter dash. Endurance running. Grip strength. Upper body training. Seated toe touch. Sit-ups. You did these in middle school, right? No quirks allowed. He grinned, a predatory expression that didn't reach his eyes. The country still insists on prohibiting quirks when calculating the average of physical records. It's not rational. The Ministry of Education is procrastinating. He opened the door. Bakugo. You finished first in the entrance exam. What was your result for the softball throw in junior high? 67 meters, Bakugo grunted. Try doing it with your quirk. The pea grounds. The sun was high and brutal, baking the dirt field. Class 1A stood in a loose semicircle, watching Bakugo stretch in the center of the throw circle. Izuku adjusted his gym uniform. It was standard issue, blue with white lines. However, unlike the other students, his uniform bulged slightly around his spine and shoulders. Underneath the fabric, the Mark 50 undersuit, a mesh of smart fiber and nanotech nodes, clung to his skin like a second epidermis. He still wore the platinum bracelets. Do whatever you want, Aizawa said. Just stay in the circle. Bakugo grinned. He wound up, his muscles tensing. Dai! Boom! A massive explosion erupted from his palm as he threw the ball. The force propelled the sphere into the stratosphere, leaving a trail of smoke. Aizawa held up a device. It beeped. He turned it to the class. 705.2 meters. Whoa! Kaminari gaped. Is this for real? That looks like fun. Ashido cheered. Use our quirks as much as we want? Ciro grinned. This is what the hero course is all about. The atmosphere lightened. The tension of the classroom evaporated into excitement. Aizawa didn't smile. His expression darkened. Fun, huh? The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. You have 3 years to become a hero. Will you have an attitude like that the whole time? Aizawa's hair shifted slightly, though there was no wind. All right. Whoever comes in last place in all 8 tests will be judged to have no potential. He looked up, his eyes flashing red for a split second, and will be punished with expulsion. The silence was absolute. Expulsion? Uraraka shrieked. But it's the first day. That's too unreasonable. Natural disasters, big accidents, and selfish villains, Aizawa droned. Calamities whose time or place can't be predicted. Japan is covered with unfairness. Heroes are the ones who reverse those situations. If you wanted to go hang out at Mickey D's after school, you're in the wrong place. He pointed a finger at the group. Welcome to the Department of Heroics. Izuku swallowed hard. Expulsion. Analysis of facial micro-expressions suggests deception. FRIDY whispered. However, his psych profile indicates he has expelled 154 students in the past. The threat is statistically viable. Great, Izuku muttered. So he's a logical sociopath. He looked at his hands. Without the armor, he was fit. Stark's regimen had seen to that. But compared to someone like Shoji or Sato, he was average. If he didn't use the suit, he would be last. But using the suit. Aizawa had said quirk apprehension test. FRI, Izuku sub-vocalized. If I use the suit, is it cheating? The definition of a quirk is a biological capability unique to the individual. FRIDY recited. However, Hero Law Article 12, Section 4 states that support items integral to a hero's fighting style, if registered, are permissible in physical assessments provided they do not endanger bystanders. You registered the Omega armor as your quirk factor on the UA forms to hide the truth. Therefore, in this context, you are the suit. I am the suit, Izuku repeated. Test 1, 50-meter dash. Ida, Tenya, and Tsuyu Ajiri lined up. Bang. Ida shot forward, his engines roaring. 3.04 seconds. Ajiri leaped like a frog. 5.58 seconds. Next, Aizawa called. Midoriya. Bakugo. Izuku walked to the line. Bakugo stood next to him, vibrating with intensity. Don't think you can beat me in speed, Deku, Bakugo hissed. Your metal toy is heavy. Izuku ignored him. FRIDY. Engage hoverscape protocol. Divert power to rear thrusters. Keep it low profile. Affirmative. Repulsor output at 15%. On your mark, the machine said. Get set. Bang. Bakugo launched himself with explosions behind him, flying low. Izuku didn't run. The repulsors in the soles of his shoes and the palms facing backward flared with blue light. He didn't lift off the ground fully. He skimmed it. He looked like he was sliding on ice, frictionless and accelerating instantly. It was a blur of motion. Bakugo was fast, but the explosive propulsion had a rhythm. Blast, pause, blast. Izuku was constant thrust. Izuku crossed the line. 3.02 seconds. Bakugo crossed a split second later. 4.13 seconds. Bakugo skidded to a halt, staring at the scoreboard. What? Midoriya is faster than Ida? Mineta gasped. It's not running though, Ida critiqued, adjusting his glasses. He is using propulsion. It is closer to flight. Efficient, Aizawa muttered, writing on his clipboard. But dependent on fuel. Test 2, grip strength. Izuku held the dynamometer. Activating artificial muscle fibers, FRIDY said. The nanites in the undersuit contracted, tightening around Izuku's forearm, augmenting his natural strength with hydraulic pressure. Izuku squeezed. Crunch. The machine sparked and shattered in his hand. Izuku dropped the pieces. Sorry. Error, the Proctor machine beeped. Shoji, 540 kilograms, Aizawa read out, ignoring Izuku's destroyed device. Midoriya, device failure. We'll mark it as high. Test 3, standing long jump. Aoyama fired his laser to propel himself backward. Bakugo blasted himself across the sandbox. Izuku stood at the edge. Jump jets, he whispered. Repulsors flared. He didn't jump, he launched. He cleared the sandbox effortlessly, landing softly 50 meters away. Test 4, repeated sidesteps. Mineta dominated this using his balls to bounce. Izuku used the suit's lateral thrusters to dash side to side, creating a blur, but Mineta's biological advantage won out. Throughout the tests, Aizawa watched. His eyes were narrowed, fixed on Izuku. He saw the blue glow of the bracelets. He saw the unnatural shimmer of the air around the boy. He's relying entirely on that equipment, Aizawa thought. If I strip it away, what is left? A quirkless child playing soldier. Test 5, the ball throw. It was Ochako Uraraka's turn. She touched the ball. It floated. She threw it, and it kept going. And going. Infinity. The class cheered. That's insane, Midoriya, Aizawa called out. You're up. Izuku walked to the circle. The ball felt small in his hand. He needed a big score. Bakugo had 700 meters. If he wanted to secure his spot, he needed to demonstrate power, not just utility. FRIDY, Izuku thought. Prepare the arm. Kinetic boost mode. We're going to use a repulsor blast at the point of release to accelerate the object. Calculating trajectory. Warning, high recoil expected. Izuku stepped into the circle. The class watched. Bakugo watched, his eyes burning. Izuku took a breath. The nanites swarmed up his right arm, forming the silver gauntlet of the armor over his gym uniform. The handplate glowed. He wound up. Smash it. He swung his arm forward, channeling the suit's power. SMA. Suddenly, the light in the gauntlet died. The hum of the arc reactor connection in his bracelet cut out. The nanites went inert, freezing into a heavy, rigid statue on his arm. Izuku stumbled forward with the momentum, throwing the ball like a normal human carrying a 20-pound weight attached to his arm. The ball plopped onto the grass. 46 meters. Silence. What happened? Kirishima asked. It just died? A malfunction? Ida wondered. Izuku stared at his hand. System alert. FRIDY said, sounding confused. External interference attempted. Connection to the main core was momentarily dampened, but wait. Rerouting. Izuku turned around. Aizawa stood there. His scarf was floating around his neck, defying gravity. His hair stood on end. And his eyes, usually black and tired, were glowing a piercing, angry red. I erased your quirk, Aizawa said, his voice flat. Izuku blinked. You what? That entrance exam. Aizawa walked closer, his glare intensifying. It wasn't rational. A kid with that much destructive power running loose? I saw the report. You destroyed the zero-pointer. But looking at you now, you can't control it, can you? Aizawa stopped a few feet from Izuku. You become a dead weight the moment your power fails. You rely on the flash, on the boom. But what happens when the lights go out? What happens when you can't summon your armor? I erased it, Aizawa repeated, closing his eyes. His hair fell back down. Give it up. Izuku looked at his arm. The silver gauntlet shimmered. The blue light flickered back to life instantly. Aizawa opened his eyes, expecting the metal to vanish or the boy to collapse. But the gauntlet remained. The light was steady. Aizawa frowned. What? I used erasure. I cut the quirk factor. Why is the armor still active? Sir, Izuku said. His voice wasn't scared. It was curious. Did you think this was a biological mutation? Aizawa's eyes narrowed. It's registered as high-spec armor integration. A transformation type. It's not, Izuku said. He raised his arm. The metal rippled, liquid and smooth. It's not a quirk, Aizawa-sensei. You can't erase it because it's not part of my DNA. The class gasped. Not a quirk? Bakugo stepped forward, confused. The hell does that mean? It's technology, Izuku stated firmly. It's the Model 50 endosim. It's a machine. Aizawa looked at the boy. He looked at the tech. A chill went down his spine. A machine? Moving with that fluidity? Responding to neural commands? That level of technology doesn't exist. Not even at Island. So, Aizawa's voice dropped, dangerous and low. You're telling me you're just a civilian in a suit? You have no power of your own? That's right, Izuku said. Then you don't belong here, Aizawa said coldly. UA is for the exceptional. Not for rich kids who bought their way into power. If the suit breaks, you are useless. The words hung in the air, heavy and cruel. Izuku clenched his metal fist. He remembered the rooftop. He remembered All Might saying the same thing. Realistic. Is a person with a mutation reliant on their biology? Izuku asked, his voice shaking slightly but gaining strength. If you erase Ojiro's tail, is he useless? If you erase Sato's strength, is he useless? Aizawa paused. This armor, Izuku tapped his chest, where the arc reactor glowed beneath his shirt. It's bonded to my nervous system. It responds to my thoughts faster than your muscles respond to yours. I built the interface. I trained my mind to handle the data load. I forged my body to withstand the G-force. Izuku looked Aizawa in the eye. It's not a tool I hold, sensei. It's a body I built. And you can't erase my mind. Aizawa stared at him. The boy was defiant. Logical. And technically correct. Fine, Aizawa stepped back. Prove it. If you're not just a passenger, then show me a result that justifies your presence. You have one throw left. Izuku turned back to the circle. Adrenaline rising. FRIDY said. He tried to shut us down, boss. That was rude. Yeah, Izuku whispered. Let's show him what a civilian can do. He picked up the ball. FRIDY unlocked the limiters on the repulsor gauntlet. Route power from the leg stabilizers. We don't need balance. We need thrust. Warning. This will dislocate your shoulder without the full suit to brace the recoil. Compensate with the undersuit hardening. Izuku widened his stance. He didn't wind up like a baseball pitcher. He stood facing the field, holding the ball in his right hand, palm facing forward. The gauntlet expanded. Plates shifted, vents opened. The high-pitched whine of charging capacitors filled the air, painful and piercing. Targeting the horizon, Izuku muttered. He dropped the ball. As it fell past his palm, smash! He didn't touch the ball. He fired a concentrated repulsion beam directly behind it at the exact moment of impact. Kakum! The shockwave was directional. It dug a trench in the dirt in front of Izuku. The air pressure knocked the students behind him off their feet. The ball didn't fly, it vanished. It broke the sound barrier instantly, creating a mock cone that shattered the windows of the school building 500 meters away. Izuku was thrown backward by the recoil, skidding across the dirt, his arms smoking. The undersuit had hardened to rigid black stone to save his bones, but his shoulder screamed in protest. He stood up, clutching his arm. Aizawa looked at the device. He stared at it for a long time. Then, he turned the screen to the class. 3,240 meters. Whoa! Kaminari whispered. That's miles? Izuku panted, looking at his teacher. I'm still standing, sensei. Aizawa's lips quirked upwards. A smile? Or a grimace? So you are. System error, rage. DKU. The scream tore through the awe of the moment. Bakugo Katsuki was moving before he was thinking. His mind had snapped. 3,000 meters? Quirkless? Tech? It was a lie. It had to be a lie. The nerd had been lying to him for 10 years. Looking down on him. Laughing at him. You bastard! Tell me how you did that. Bakugo launched himself with his explosions, closing the distance in a second. His right hand was raised, sparking with lethal intent. He aimed directly for Izuku's face. Izuku stood there. He saw Bakugo coming. Usually, he would flinch. He would cower, but the HUD flashed red. Threat detected, lethal force. Activate CQC protocol, countermeasure. FRIDY, non-lethal. Izuku shouted in his head. Executing. Izuku didn't move consciously. The suit moved him. The nanites on his left arm, which was not the smoking one, surged. As Bakugo swung, the suit analyzed the trajectory. Izuku's body ducked under the explosion with mathematical precision. His left hand shot up, grabbing Bakugo's wrist. The metal gauntlet clamped down, neutralizing the sweat glands instantly with a localized cooling spray. Izuku pivoted. He used Bakugo's own momentum. Slam. It wasn't a fight. It was a correction. Izuku slammed Bakugo into the dirt face first. He pinned Bakugo's arm behind his back and pressed his metal knee into Bakugo's spine. Don't move, Izuku said. His voice was modulated by the suit, sounding cold and robotic. The nanites on his free hand shifted, turning into a flat, glowing repulsor aimed directly at the back of Bakugo's head. Bakugo struggled, but the grip was iron. Literal iron. Let go of me! Bakugo screamed, thrashing. Stop it, both of you! Aizawa's cloth scarf shot out, wrapping around Izuku's wrist and Bakugo's neck. Izuku froze. The red light of erasure was back on Aizawa's face. Bakugo, Aizawa warned. Use your quirk on a student again, and I won't expel you. I'll have you arrested. Bakugo went limp, his breathing ragged. He stared at the dirt. He pinned me? Deku pinned me? Without even looking? Izuku released him and stepped back, the armor retracting into his bracelet. He was shaking now. Not from fear of Bakugo, but from the realization of what he had just done. I almost hurt him. The suit, it just reacted. Midoriya, Aizawa said, retracting his scarf. Good reaction time. But work on your de-escalation. You're a hero, not a bouncer. Yes, sir, Izuku swallowed. The results. The sun was setting. The class gathered around the holographic display. I won't bother reading them out, Aizawa said. It's a waste of time. Just look. The names appeared. 1. Momo Yaoyorozu, creation is versatile. 2. Izuku Midoriya, dominated dash, jump and throw. 3. Shoto Todoroki. 4. Katsuka Bakugo. 20. Izuku Midoriya. Wait. No, that was Mineta? No, wait. Izuku scanned the list. He was second. By the way, Aizawa said, turning to walk away. The expulsion was a lie. Huh! The class screamed. It was a logical ruse to draw out your upper limits. I knew it! Yaoyorozu sighed, clutching her chest. That was a little scary though, Azuri croaked. Izuku looked at Aizawa's retreating back. Deception detected again. FRIDY whispered. He was serious, boss. If you hadn't thrown that ball past the sound barrier, you'd be packing your bags. Izuku clenched his fist. I know. As the class began to disperse, chattering excitedly about the curriculum, Izuku felt a gaze on him. He turned. Todoroki Shoto was staring at him. The boy with half-white, half-red hair. He looked at Izuku's wrist, then at his face. His expression was unreadable, but intense. And further back, leaning against the wall of the main building, hidden in the shadows, was a skeletal figure. All Might watched Izuku interact with Uraraka and Ida. He stood his ground. All Might whispered to himself. He stood up to Aizawa. He stood up to young Bakugo. All Might smiled. Iron Heart indeed.